Welcome, welcome. Welcome to today's painting party for the Valentine Happy Mail. Just gonna make sure that everything's okay. I got a new card for streaming and I want to make sure that everything's set up. Okay, I think we got it. Looks good, sounds good. If you're able to watch, say hi. I'd so appreciate it if you would give me some thumbs or hearts, if you would spread the joy with the video, and as always, comment, say hi. Let me know if you're painting or if you're just watching now and then you'll paint later. And I am going to see if I can do something here. Let's see. I'm going to try and activate a poll in my live. We'll see how this works. Something new I discovered. So I can activate a poll which allows you guys to comment on your favorite. So let me know if you see that and where you see it. Oh, let me know if it pops up for you guys. You should get a little pop-up on what your favorite card is. Truck, gnome, berries, or succulent. So we'll see how that works. Anyways, okay, so we're gonna paint these today, and if you want to paint along and you haven't already, you can go to the link in the description. It will take you to my website where you will find the download for it. It will have the tracers and the supply lists, and you just put your email in, and then it will email you a zip file, which then you unzip and can print out. Okay. All right, so let me know, you guys, on that poll if it's covering the video, because it kind of looks like it's covering the video on my side, but maybe it's not. Anyways, I can always turn it off if it's a nuisance. And hopefully I can see comments. I'm not seeing anything right yet. Hi Jessica, hi Donna, hi Sarah, hi Linda. Thanks for watching. Thanks for joining us. Okay, so let me just talk about these cards. I just used a blank craft note card, and I think this is a 5 or an A5, I think is the term they use, but it's about 5.5. Hi Kathy. 5 by 6.5 is what the note card is, and it was a pack that came with the blank note cards and the envelope. So that's what I'm using as my base, and then I just grabbed some cardstock and I cut it down so that I would have this border all the way around. And so what I cut my paper to is 6 by 4.5, so about 1/2 inch shorter than my card, and that gave me a 1/4 inch border all the way around. So, and you could definitely, if you just had white note cards, you could definitely just paint right on the note cards themselves as well. So a lot of different options there. So, oh good, you guys are answering it. Looks like we right now are, the gnome is the favorite. So let's paint that one first. That's a kind of cool new feature. I didn't know that we could do that, so there we go. All right, so we've got the gnome. I'm going to take my little piece of card here, and I'm going to grab my tracer. I printed these out and just cut these out to the size, or cut those out of a full-size sheet. I'm going to line it up, and I'm going to take my graphite paper. Let me grab some tape real quick. And we'll tape that down and trace that on. You don't need to have graphite paper. If you don't have any, you could always use the pencil technique, where we take a pencil and we just rub some of that graphite right onto the back of our tracer. And you really just have to go over the lines that you can see through the back, and then that acts as a transfer for your tracers. So you don't need to have graphite paper if you don't have it. Don't worry about purchasing it. Okay, so I'm getting a little ahead of myself. Let's talk about the paint we're using and the brushes. I have white and black today. I'm using an aquamarine from Apple Barrel, a sun-kissed peach, and then from DecoArt Americana, I am using a razzleberry, a poodle skirt, and I'm missing a color, a green color. Where's my green? I'm using Kelly Green by Apple Barrel. The exact colors are not necessary. Use whatever you have. Switch out to your favorite colors. These are just suggestions. And then for brushes, all we're going to need is a medium-sized flat and a couple different rounds. So remember to let me know if you have any issues with the downloads. It's a fairly new little plugin we have on our website, so I'm hoping everything is set up correctly. But do message me if you run into anything, and I will fix it. Sarah says she can't stay today, but will watch later. No problem. This is recorded and will be available on our page indefinitely, or until Facebook tells us we have to remove it. Okay, so let me put something behind my card so it's a little easier to see. Let's see, where's my brown piece of paper? We got white on white, so there we go. That helps. So we're going to start with the gnome, and it's all transferred and we're ready to go. So let's start with the background. We're going to do a muted two-colored background. We're going to use white and that aquamarine, or wait, no, I have another color I'm missing. I think it's cloudless for my background. Okay, so we're going to add some white and some blue to our palette. I'm going to use a medium-sized flat, and we're going to add a little bit of that blue to our brush, and then we're going to load it up with a bunch of white, and we're going to just come out and randomly place our brush strokes in. We're creating just a soft muted color. We don't want to over blend. We want to see some of that blue and some of that white. and I'm just messily placing my paint down on the background, going over the balloons. I'm going over the lines of the gnome here. It's a light color, so I'm still going to be able to see that traced image through my paint. So I'm not concerned about cutting in around all of those elements. Okay. I'm going to get a little bit of the black out, and we're going to put our ground in, and our ground is just a mix of the white and the black to get a gray. I'm going to use the same brush, the flat brush for this. And I'm going to load up with a bunch of that white, and then I'm going to dab my brush just very lightly into that black. Black is very potent and doesn't take a lot. And then I'm going to just go back and forth, left and right, creating a gray color right on my little card here. If it gets to be too dark, just add a little bit of white and blend it in. And if you want it a little darker, just add a little bit of black to that. So blending this right on our card is going to give us this great variation of color. We're going to have a little bit of area that is light, some dark areas. Okay. So let's get out. We'll start at the top, and we're going to work our way down our little gnome here. I'm going to get my colors out. I'm using a raspberry, a really bright pink for the hat, and then I've got the aquamarine for the body. And then we are using a light pink, poodle skirt pink for the balloons. I'm going to switch to a medium round brush, and I have no idea what the number is on this. It could be a 6 or an 8, but my numbers wear off pretty quick on my brushes, so just use a round that you are comfortable using. Brushes are just a suggestion as well. Okay. So I've got, we'll start with this raspberry pink for the hat. And I'm just going to fill in this area here. I'm holding off on the pom-pom on top just because my paint is still a little wet, and I don't want my white pom-pom to mix with that blue background. So I'm giving that just a few more minutes to dry. These little cards are so fun to paint. They're quick, they're easy, and they are just the cutest thing. You could always use these tracers too to, you know, enlarge them and do something a little bit bigger if you wanted to. You could paint them on wood and create cute little shelf sitters. Let's see. Hi Mary, hi Caroline from Alabama, welcome. Brandy, hi. Welcome, welcome. All right, let's keep going. And hopefully we can get all 4 of these painted in an hour. If I'm going too fast, remember this is going to be recorded, and so you can always catch it later and be able to pause and rewind as you need. So I'm just adding a little of this sun-kissed peach to his nose, filling in that little bit there, and then I'm going to add a little bit of white to my brush. I'm not going to wash it, just dip it in that white, and I'm going to add a little brush stroke right at the top. So I'm blending a little bit of white in at the top, lightening it up, making it look like there's some sun coming down and glinting off the top of his nose right there. So looking at the poll here, your favorite card so far is the gnome. Awesome. He is cute. All right, so let's go on to the beard. And for the beard, we're just going to use a mixture of the white and gray. Just like we did with the ground, we're gonna load our brush up with that white. I'm gonna dip just a little bit into that black. And I'm just gonna let those colors mix right on my card here, which is going to give us some great variation. We're going to have some brush strokes that might be a little bit darker. We're going to have some that are a little bit lighter. Again, play around with as much black as you want. Make it as dark or as light as you want. You could even do a different colored beard. Could go with brown. And there we go. So I'm leaving my brush strokes in there. I'm not trying to smooth it out because I want to see or show that this is hair. So I'm leaving some brush strokes, very prominent, bold brush strokes in there. Okay. He's getting cuter by the minute. All right, so let's go grab some of this aquamarine, and we will fill in his little body, his arms. So does anybody still send Valentine cards, or I know that Christmas is a big holiday card time, but we occasionally get a Valentine card, and it's just kind of a nice little treat. So I encourage you to paint and send your cards. Okay, so like we did with the nose, I'm going to add a little bit of white to my brush. I'm not going to wash it. And I'm just going to add some white fun streaks to the top of his body here, and then also kind of around his midsection here, just to add some highlights to those areas. Yeah, Caroline says, at one time I loved sending cards, and as I get older I don't send very often, but I love the idea. Yeah, it kind of, I think, seems to be a thing of the past, sending cards. I used to send cards as well, and for some holidays we'd make them with the kids and send those, and it just doesn't seem to be a thing people do anymore. With all the social media and connections we make there, sending cards has gone to the wayside. But who doesn't love receiving cards still, or mail? Okay, so I just grabbed a little bit of black and I filled in his little feet there. And again, I'm going to grab a little bit of that white and add a little arced brush stroke on the top of his feet there for, again, some highlight. Okay. Alright, and I'm going to go back and fill in his little hands. I forgot all about those when I was filling in his nose. His hands are really simple shapes. They're just little circles. Kind of think of a stuffed gnome with a pom-pom hand. That's kind of what we're doing here. So nothing hard about that. Okay, so our background is dry. Let's go get that pom-pom filled in. We're going to grab some white and just get just a messy pom-pom set up here. You could do a heart-shaped pom-pom at the top if you wanted to. We're going into this last color for the card, this poodle skirt pink, and we will get our balloons filled in here. You could always save a step and start, if you had scrapbook paper and you had something in a light blue, you could just start painting your little gnome right on that light blue for your sky in the background. Kind of make it just even a little bit faster process. Okay. Alright, so the last step is to add some detail lines or some outlines. I'm going to switch to a tiny little liner brush, and I'm going to add a couple drops of water to my black just to help loosen it up a little bit so it flows a little bit better. And then I'm able to get a really thin line. You don't want it dripping off your brush, just a couple drops. Okay, I'm going to start at the top and I'm going to trim my brush here real quick. I've got just a bristle here that wants to pop out. See, hopefully that helped. So I'm going to add some black lines here and there around my gnome. Definitely not going to do the entire thing, just do a brush stroke. So when I outline something, I typically just fill my brush up and I drag it around the edge I'm outlining, and when it ends or my brush empties, I pick up, I reload, and then I go down further a little bit. So I've got this space here that I'm not going to outline. I like the looks of just a fun few black lines here and there, but not a complete outline of the elements. So I'm going to add a few around the beard, around the top of the nose here. Go, he's coming together. You could always add some detail to his hat. You could do some stripes or some polka dots. Would be super cute. Let's go add some outline to the, I'm going to switch brushes. That one still has a little bit of some bristles that are poking out. Let me find a different liner brush here. Hi from Oregon. You're gonna have to help me with your name. I do not want to try. I know I will butcher your name from Oregon, but I'm so glad you're here watching. My aunt has lived in Oregon for a while. Well, she used to. She used to live there, and she loves it there. Okay, let's try this brush. Alright, and then we just want to make sure that we bring our little tails or our strings down for our balloons. I gather right above his hand there, and then I bring out some little tails below there. Alright, I'm going to wash my brush real quick, and I'm going to add a few little bit of white bits to his hat. Just going to add some fun little squiggles to make it look like his hat's kind of got some wrinkles in it or it's bunched up. Then I'm going to add some white to my heart balloons. Then I'm going to dip right into that razzleberry and add a little bit of some of that into my bigger balloon. And there we go. Okay, so let me hold this up. There he is. And so what I did with this then is I just put some double-sided sticky tape. You could use glue, and then I just put some glue on the back there and tape it to your note card, and you are ready to go. Alright, so there's one done. What are we going to do next? Let's see, let me look at the poll here. We have a tie between the truck and the succulent. So let's see what I pull out first. The succulent. We'll do that one next. This cute little pot. So we'll get our tracer out. Tape that down. And we will transfer our image. So if you've never used graphite paper or transfer paper, there are two sides to this. There's a dull side and a shiny side. When you're doing your transfer, make sure that the shiny side is down. All right. All right, so for this background, I just did a really light blue, so I'm going to use the blue that's on my palette, and I'm gonna actually add a little bit of white to it, just to lighten it up just a little bit. I'm gonna use my large flat for this. Let me just check my comments here real quick. Thanks, Caroline. The gnome is really cute. These cards are so fun to make, you guys. Okay. So I am going to load my brush up with white, and then I'm going to grab that blue. But instead of trying to keep my brush strokes really random and not over blend, I am going to just kind of create that solid light blue. You could always just blend it right on your palette here and get that light blue, or if you had a color that you wanted to use from the bottle, you could do that too. Again, this is a light enough color that I'm still able to see my transfer. If you go for a darker color, if you decided you wanted to use a dark gray or dark black or some other really heavy color that isn't very translucent, you could just put your background on, let it dry, and then transfer right over on top of your background. And that will help eliminate, you know, trying to see all of that through a dark background. Okay. There we go. So let me just show you the difference between the two. One, I overblend and I've kind of got just a blue background, and then for the gnome, I didn't blend as much. Whoops, I grabbed the wrong card. And so, you know, you get more of a solid color. You do have a little bit of variation, but here you can definitely see those fun brush strokes where we have that blues, we have areas of white. So depending on how much you blend when you're putting your background in will give you a completely different background. All right. Let's start with his this pot of succulents. Let's put those leaves in. So I'm going to use that Kelly green, and I'm going to push a little bit of that Kelly green aside here. I'm going to create a little pile there, and I'm going to add a little bit of black to it. I want a darker green. So I'm just going to darken it up a little bit, and what I'm going to do with this darker green is concentrate on the leaves that are in the back. So some of these leaves that we can barely see, I'm going to use that darker green. And then we're going to get lighter as we come. That way it looks like those leaves for this little plant are in the background. So I've got a few that are dark. Those are just kind of ones that are peeking out through the back, and now I'm just going to grab just that Kelly green and fill in my bigger leaves here. And then let's pull a little bit of that green aside. We're going to add a little bit of white to it and create a lighter green. And I'm going to just kind of highlight some of these front leaves here. Just going to touch on one side of those. I'm dragging that light color right through just one side, just to help give it some variation. Okay. All right, so let's do it the little pot. And for the little pot, I'm using that sun-kissed peach for the top rim. And then for the bottom, I'm going to take some of that sun-kissed peach. I need just a little bit more. And I'm going to mix some of the raspberry with it to get a little bit of a darker color. This is kind of my way of getting a terracotta color without pulling another paint bottle off my shelf. So just continually add that pink to it and till you get the color you like, or if you do have a terracotta paint bottle, definitely do that as well. These are all just suggestions. You can paint your cards however you want. And I just had this idea that if you wanted to do this as a family activity or not, however you want to do it, you could actually just print these right on cardstock and then cut them out and you're ready to go. You don't even have to trace them. You could use these, print them out on cardstock, and then just paint right on them and skip the transfer stage. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my liner brush. I'm going to get some of this black, and we're going to outline the leaves a little bit. Again, I'm not going to create a complete outline of them. I'm just going to add a little bit of black here and there just to help define those. Go. And we'll go around the pot here a little bit. And then we'll add his little face, his little squinty eyes, and his half smile. Okay, and then I also added a few little black lines around the leaves. And that just helps give it the look that he's maybe shaking or moving. Kind of like some movement lines all around the pot as well, and then it kind of makes it look like he's kind of doing a little jig. Alright, so I'm going to wash my brush, and I'm going to grab some white with my liner brush. And let's add some highlights to the top of the rim here. Just drag some white along the top, maybe along the sides. I'll do it along the top here of the bottom piece, and then along the sides as well. And let's add some white into the leaves too. To kind of help stand those out a little bit more. Okay, we got just a little bit of gray came in there. Fix that up a little bit. Okay. So for the letters, I wanted to show you, you could definitely use your liner brush in black and paint those on, but I did want to show you another method. You could use a paint pen, and these things are amazing for getting lettering on your painting. So my black was right here earlier, there it is. So this is an Art Skills brand, but there's tons of brands out there on Amazon, and I know at the craft stores. This one I think I got at Costco or Sam's Club. And it's kind of got a medium tip. You can get different paint markers with different size tips. But this is going to allow me to quickly just get my lettering in. It allows us to use the marker, you know, as a little bit more naturally to do the lettering. Trying to brush on lettering sometimes can be difficult and frustrating. Takes a lot of practice, and these little paint pens can really help kind of bridge that gap. The one thing I do want to mention is if you're using a paint pen, make sure that your surface is completely dry. Because if you try and drag paint through these tips, it kind of breaks apart those filaments, and then it doesn't work quite as well. So easy peasy, guys. You could also use a Sharpie marker. I have also done that. I'm gonna probably do that on the berry one to show you guys how easy just using a Sharpie marker can be when creating these cards. So, card number 2, the succulent. He's so cute. I love these little pots. You kind of are seeing them everywhere with the little faces on them. Those little ceramic pots are so cute. All right, let's do the truck next. And it looks like, looking at the pool, looks like the gnome is still in the lead for the favorite card. Okay, so for this one, I'm just going to trace the truck and the bigger hearts. I'm going to hand do all of the little hearts along the side, and I'm going to show you how easy those hearts can be. And a little tip on making small little hearts. Okay. Same type of background as the gnome. We're going to use our flat brush, medium size flat brush, and we're going to do the same method with the background using that blue and white, and we're going to create that really soft lightly blended muted background. Keep it random, keep it loose. These backgrounds shouldn't take you too long. Just want to go as kind of at a fast pace. The faster we go, the less we think about our brush strokes, which gives us that nice random background. Okay. And then don't forget underneath the bumper down here at the bottom. And then also we're going to use this blue and white in this little area right here where we see the window. So I'm going to just drag a little bit of light blue through that. And that's it. Easy. Hi Angie. See who else is watching. Teresa, welcome. Glad you guys are here. If you're just joining us, we are painting Valentine cards, Happy Mail. And if you would like to paint along or paint along later with us, the replay will be available on our page. This is being recorded, and so you can catch it on the replay later. And then also the supply list and tracers are in a link in the description, and that will take you to my website where you put your email in, and then it will email you a zip file that you can download or extract the files from there. Okay, so let's get the truck color in. I'm using that aquamarine color. And I'm just going to start to fill that in. I've got the top of the truck up here. So we also did something similar for Christmas. We did Christmas cards, 5 days of Christmas cards, and we did 5 cards similar to this. And it's fun to see this truck be transformed to different holidays. So we obviously did the truck, it was red, and we had a tree coming out. So if we do more cards for Easter, I'm excited to again bring that truck into the next holiday and add the Easter eggs or a bunny to the back would be so cute. So this truck is definitely used in so many holidays. Caroline says, I'll go back and look for that video. Yeah, so we've just recently organized all our videos on our Facebook page. So if you go to the top where you can, there's a tab for the about, there's a tab for the photos. If you click on the tab for videos, it will take you to all our videos, and then we've organized all of our free paint videos into a category called fun and free painting. So it should be there to easily find. And we did those over a series of 5 days, so each card got its own little video. So okay, so let's get some white out and add some fun white accents to the top of the truck. Just going to drag some white to the top up here, to the side. We'll go to the top of the tailgate, the wheel well, and then around this little boxed area in the tailgate. And there we go. That just helps create some definition in those areas. And looking at this truck and this truck, I'm definitely using a different color. I grabbed the wrong blue, guys. So this is, I bet this is a Key West, now that I'm looking at it. Yep. So if you like the lighter color, Key West is what I'm using here. If you like the darker color, the aquamarine is what I'm using. Okay, so let's grab some of that razzleberry and some of that poodle skirt pink, and we will fill in our hearts. If you guys are able to paint along, I encourage you to share your work. I love seeing everybody's take on these cards. You can post them in the comments here. You can post them right on Redbyrd's Facebook page. So I love seeing everybody's take on it. There's a point when we paint where we eventually kind of, in our brain as we're painting, kind of say, what if? What if we change the color? What if this happens? And so we start to experiment, and that is the magic of painting, and I love seeing everybody's creativity come out in their questions they're asking. Typically when I paint something, it's really hard to paint it exactly the same, because I do that same thing. I get into that painting and I'm like, well, what if? What if there were polka dots on the heart? Or what would it look like if we did this? And so a lot of times you'll see me post a picture of something, and then as we're painting it, I tend to switch it up a little bit. See what would happen if we did it a little bit different. All right, I got my two main hearts filled in, and let's go and add some hearts out here. So my tip for smaller hearts is to think of a heart as a letter V, and that's really all you're going to do. So I'm going to take my brush and I'm going to do one side of the V, and then I'm going to come in and do the other side of the V, and there's my heart. And depending on your brush size will depend on how big of your heart. So you could get a larger brush and get bigger hearts, and then you can also use a smaller brush and get smaller hearts. But all they are, guys, are just the brush stroke for a V. It's just like if you were going to put a V in there. And so I'm creating some smaller ones with the same size brush, and I'm just using a lighter pressure. So just a really light pressure gives me a smaller little stroke there, and I'm able to create some smaller hearts. All right, let's go add some of the other hearts. We're going to go back to that razzleberry, and we'll put a larger heart up here. And then so here, this heart got a little bit small. I do want it a little bit big, so I'm just going to work my way around that, thickening up that, essentially the V. Okay, so we just make our brush stroke a little heavier. We add a little bit around the edges, and there we go. Now we're going to add a couple smaller ones floating off. And we also have one up here. I think we need one right here though. Just a small guy. There we go. Caroline says that makes it seem so easy. Yeah, when you think about it like that, it is. It's not having to you know, trace around the edge and fill in. It's just 2 brush strokes and super easy, super simple hearts. All right, so let's work our way down. We need to fill in the tailgate here, and I need a little bit more white. We're going to just mix a white and a black together to get the gray we need. I'm going to load my brush up with white. I'm going to dip it in that black, and I'm going to just let my brush blend those colors right on my card. We're going to go grab just a little bit of white, and let's streak some white along the top for that sun glint off the metal there. Then I'm just going to go right into my black and put in my little tire right down here. And I'll dip it in the white and just drag a few little squiggly lines through my tire to put the treads in. There we go. Alright, so I'm going to grab the white and I'm going to fill in this license plate here real quick, and then we're going to switch brushes to a liner brush. We're going to go back to that black and add some fun detail lines. You could always use the paint pen for this step as well. You could get a really fine tipped paint pen. So this is a medium, and it would be a little bit too thick to try and add some detail lines in this small of a painting, but I know you can get these a little bit smaller. I don't have any small fine tip ones with me right now, but you could definitely do that if kind of creating these detail lines makes you nervous as well. Sometimes they can help in that step as well. When you're doing brush strokes that require a really thin line, I do recommend being able to set your hand down on something. That really helps you create a really light pressure, so you're not, you know, lifting your hand up, because our hands do get heavy, and so trying to stay in this position, eventually our hands are going to get heavy and apply a lot of pressure to our brush, which more pressure means thicker lines. And so I do recommend being able to set your hand down. So make sure that when you're setting your hand down, though, that your image is dry, your painting is dry. Okay, I'm going to add a little XO in the license plate for something fun. Okay, let's add a couple black lines around the indents on the tailgate there. And then let's add some black into the hearts up here. I think I'm just going to try and hit the bigger hearts. I'm going to leave the smaller hearts as is. Okay, and then one last thing for this guy, we need some white on these hearts. Just right at the top here. Again, the sun's coming down and hitting the tops of those hearts. It really helps make them look a little more 3D and not so flat. You can do the same on the other hearts as well. Just add a little bit of some white to the tops. And there we go. Card number 3 done. Let me lift it up so you can see. So you could definitely add some patterns to the hearts, some polka dots, some stripes, some chevron, and make it a little more detailed. And those are the two colors, a light and a darker teal there. All right, we got one more, guys. This one's a really easy one. We are going to play with using acrylics as a watercolor. Let me grab that one out. So here is this. And this one is super fun because we are kind of coloring outside the lines. We're letting that acrylic watercolor flow and kind of get messy, which is the beauty of watercolors. And I'm going to show you how to do that with just acrylic paint. If you had watercolors, you could definitely do that as well. All right, let's tape this down and we'll get our image traced on. So for this example of our cards, you do want to have a waterproof marker. So a Sharpie or some other, like a journaling pen that is waterproof. The key though is waterproof because we are going to be using a lot of water with our acrylic paint, and we don't want it to activate our outline and cause a black bleed. We're going to put our black lines down first and then come over the top of that with our faux watercolor. Alright, so I'm going to grab a thin, or what is this, ultra fine point Sharpie. And you could also use something like I said, a journaling pen or a graphite pen. Just want to make sure that it says waterproof so it doesn't get activated with our... this one is from Hobby Lobby. It's the Master's Touch. But I know that they make a micron version. And I don't know if I have one right here to show you. But that would work as well. Okay, so we're going to start by, again, like I said, putting our line work in first. So we're going to trace all of our lines here. Okay, we got our letters in. We're going to put our berries in next. Okay, so then the next step is to grab an eraser and erase any of that graphite that still might be there. Because once we put paint on it, it pretty much will lock in any of that graphite there. And then just make sure that your marker is dry. Sharpies usually dry pretty fast, so you shouldn't have to wait too long before you can erase everything. So if you were to print out the cards on cardstock and skip the tracing step, you might just want to test out the way that the ink from your printer will activate with, or if it will activate with that wet paint. I would assume that most printers, you know, have that waterproof capability, but I would test that before you start. Okay, so we've erased our graphite, we've got our line work in, and now we are ready to, just gonna thicken this one up here a little bit. All right, so I'm gonna use two colors, the raspberry and the Kelly green for this. And you really just need a really tiny drop because we're going to add a lot of water to it to make it a watercolor. So I'm going to start two new fresh piles off to the side here. There we go. And I'm going to use a round brush for this, just a medium round. I forgot something real quick. Where's my marker? I forgot to put little seeds in here, so I'm just going to put a couple little dots in the bottom part of my berries. You could always do this after the fact too. There we go. Okay. Back to it. All right, so I'm going to grab a little bit of water out of my water container here, and I'm going to just mix it in with that raspberry. I want to just make sure that the water you're grabbing from isn't too dirty. I got fresh water right before this, so it's got a little bit of color in it, but it's not going to be enough to change the color of my raspberry to use it in mixing here. You don't want to get it so wet that it's dripping off your brush either. But let's just add, you know, 3 or 4 drops, mix it around, and then we're going to just come out and brush that on our largest berry here. And I want it to come outside of my lines and be more abstract, a little messy, like that watercolor's flowing on my paper a little bit more. And so I'm not being too careful about being right inside the lines there. Okay, and then I'm going to add just a little bit more water. It was a little dark for that one. So I'm going to lighten it up even more. The more water you get, the less pigment you have, and so you get this really nice light watercolored feel to that. And because we're using that waterproof, it's not activating that black marker, so that kind of just stays in the background there and looks really cool. Okay, and then if you wanted to darken up certain areas, you could add a little more pigment to it, darken that up on your palette here, and then we can just drag some dark water through one side of our berries. There we go. And then we can also then just go grab some water and add water right to our surface and kind of blend those around and move that paint around. Thanks, Caroline. Hi, Katie. Welcome. All right, guys, the next step then is to add some water to that green. And we're going to fill in our stems. And so with watercolor, a lot of the times you get this blooming effect. And what that means is one color that is still wet activates with another color that's still wet and will pull the colors in together, and you get this blooming happening. So let me show you on this one. So right here, when I was doing this, my strawberry was wet. I put my green in. The two colors touched right here and created this bloom effect, which is such a cool technique in watercolor, and embrace that. That's what makes watercolor cool. And look super, it's just kind of got this really soft, really cool texture there. So if that happens, don't worry about it, just let it dry. It makes the strawberry look a little green right there. I've got some going on right here and here, and so embrace the bloom. Okay, so I'm going to grab a little bit more green, darken it up a little bit, and add maybe a couple dark streaks around some areas. And then I'm going to actually darken up my letters with this. It's a little bit thicker Sharpie, but I want to darken them up. I did one, and now it looks like I just need to do the rest. And then we've got one last step to this last card, and that is to splatter some color on, which again is a really cool, fun thing to do with watercolors, is to get these really great splatters on there. So we're going to come back to that raspberry. We're going to add a little bit of water to it, and I'm just going to grab my pencil, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to tap my brush right on this pencil, and it's going to splatter. So if you've never done splattering before, I do recommend doing it on a separate piece of paper. Just practice off to the side, kind of see what's going to happen, and that way you know how much paint you have on your brush too, because sometimes we can load this up. It can hold quite a bit, and if we have too much, you kind of get big splatters. So play around with how much paint you have, test it out, and then splatter. The other thing is splattering paint does cause a mess, so make sure that you have your space around you covered or anything important moved. Okay, so we're going to splatter some pink out there. There we go. And then we're going to get some of that green. And then we'll splatter some of that out. There we go. That is our last card. Let me see if I can get you to see the splatter. Let's add some really fun texture to these cards, especially the watercolor ones. All right, guys, let's see. How'd we do? Well, we're a little bit over on time. I was hoping to keep it to an hour, but it's kind of a stretch for 4 cards. So thanks for hanging out with me today. Thanks for hanging in there till the end. If you did, I would love to see your guys' cards if you do paint them. be sure to share those on our Facebook page so we can see your awesome work. And if you do send them out, even better. Don't hide your art. Put them on a blank note card. Write a quick little note in, and what a blessing these would be to somebody to get in the mail, especially with this last year not being able to see people. A little happy mail can go a long way. So I appreciate you guys stopping in, saying hi. Again, spread the joy. Help me get the video out there. Give me some thumbs up and hearts. And can't wait till next week. We are doing the love letter on Thursday at noon. Let me show you what that looks like real quick. If I can find it. There we go. So we will paint this next Thursday at noon. So keep your eye out for that as well. All right, guys. Thank you. Have a great week, and we will talk to you soon. Thanks. Bye.